The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air as Amna arranged the plates on the breakfast table. It was their Sunday ritual. A calm morning spent with her partner, Samir, discussing everything from weekend plans to mundane office gossip. To outsiders, their relationship appeared perfect, an enviable blend of love and compatibility. But for Amna, the cracks had started to show. Samir had grown distant in recent weeks. Late-night meetings, distracted conversations, and the faint scent of perfume on his shirts had turned her suspicions into a gnawing unease. She wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, though. Amna had always been the rational one, the fixer, as her friends called her. But something about last night's vague excuse, a work emergency on a Saturday night, had kept her awake. As she stirred sugar into her coffee, her thoughts churned. Maybe I'm overthinking, she whispered to herself, brushing aside the anxiety. The door creaked open and Samir entered, his phone clutched tightly in his hand. His eyes darted toward Amna before quickly looking away. "Morning," he muttered, planting a kiss on her forehead. Amna forced a smile. "Morning. How was the work emergency?" "It was fine. Just exhausting," he replied, too quickly. Her smile faltered as she caught him checking his phone again. He was typing furiously, and though she couldn't see the screen, the guilty look in his eyes spoke volumes. Amna decided to let it slide, for now. She needed more than intuition. Later that day, while Samir was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the bedside table. Amna hesitated, her heart pounding as she reached for it. The message preview was enough to steal her breath. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Red heart." Her hands trembled. She unlocked the phone with the passcode she wasn't supposed to know but did, out of habit more than distrust. The sender's name confirmed her worst fears. Sanaa. Sanaa was Samir's ex, a name Amna had hoped was buried in the past. Flashes of every moment they'd shared, every promise Samir had made, ran through her mind like a cruel montage. The warmth of their mornings, the laughter of their evenings, all of it felt like a lie. But Amna wasn't one to break down easily. Her shock quickly morphed into determination. She decided she wouldn't confront him immediately. Instead, she needed to see how far this betrayal went. Over the next few days, she pieced together the puzzle. Late-night calls, unsent texts in the drafts folder, and a suspicious dinner reservation at a restaurant she'd never been to. Samir had grown careless, too confident in her trust. Amna's emotions swung between fury and heartbreak. She confided in her best friend, Miriam, who reacted with the indignation Amna couldn't yet afford to show. "You can't let him get away with this," Miriam said, her tone fierce. "He's playing you, Amna. Do something." Amna nodded, though her mind was already ahead of the conversation. She wasn't going to confront Samir with just words. If he thought he could deceive her, he was about to learn otherwise. The stage was set, and Amna was ready to play her part. Amna's meticulous planning began that evening. If Samir thought he could have his cake and eat it too, she would ensure the frosting turned bitter. She started by creating a private social media account under a pseudonym. It didn't take long to find Sanaa's profile. Public, curated, and full of subtle hints. Sanaa's photos painted a picture of someone who hadn't entirely let go of Samir. A recent post caught Amna's attention. A photo of a hand holding a coffee mug, its distinctive pattern identical to the set Amna had bought for her home. The caption read, "Some mornings just feel perfect. Red heart." Amna's stomach churned, but she kept her composure. She saved the photo and added it to the growing folder of evidence on her laptop. A few days later, her suspicions were confirmed when she overheard Samir on a call in the living room. His voice was low, but the words were unmistakable. "I told you I'll handle it. Just be patient, okay?" The quiet laugh that followed made Amna's blood boil. But she stifled her anger. Her plan was far from complete. Amna installed a discreet app on Samir's phone. It mirrored his messages and call logs to her device, a decision she wrestled with morally, but justified as necessary. Over the next few days, the app revealed the full extent of his betrayal. The texts with Sanaa were flirtatious, suggestive, and peppered with promises that made Amna feel sick. But instead of wallowing, she used this information strategically. She noted every detail, their planned dates, their inside jokes, and their favorite hangout spots. Miriam became Amna's co-conspirator, offering moral support and brainstorming ideas. You could go full drama and show up at their date, Miriam suggested one night. Amna shook her head. No, that's too predictable. I want him to feel the weight of what he's done, like a slow burn he can't escape. Together, they crafted an elaborate scheme that would culminate in a public reveal. Amna began acting normal, or as normal as she could. She smiled at Samir, asked about his day, and even cooked his favorite meals. Each act of kindness made her seethe internally, but she played her part flawlessly. Her efforts paid off when Samir let his guard down. One evening, he casually mentioned meeting a client after work. Amna smiled, kissed his cheek, and wished him luck. As soon as he left, she followed. Her heart raced as she tailed his car to a small cafe across town. From her parked car, she saw them through the glass window. Samir and Sanaa, seated close, their laughter echoing even through the distance. Amna snapped a few pictures, each click a mix of pain and empowerment. Armed with evidence, Amna prepared for the next phase, setting the trap. She reached out to a friend who worked in event planning, convincing her to hire Sanaa for a fictitious surprise birthday party for Samir. The catch? The party would be at the same venue where Amna had planned to confront him. The invitations were sent to Samir's close friends and colleagues. Amna ensured Sanaa received one too, making it seem like Samir had orchestrated the entire event. The night of the party arrived. Samir was clueless. Dressed sharply is a blazer Amna had gifted him. "This is really sweet of you," he said, smiling as they arrived at the venue. Amna returned his smile, masking her nerves. "Anything for you." The hall was filled with guests, each chatting and laughing, oblivious to the storm about to break. As the clock struck 8, Amna took the microphone. Samir stood beside her, looking proud and relaxed. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady. "And especially Samir for being the most unpredictable partner I could ask for." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Samir chuckled nervously, sensing something off. "I have a little presentation prepared," Amna continued, gesturing toward the projector, "to celebrate Samir's year of unforgettable moments." The lights dimmed and the first slide appeared, a photo of Samir and Amna on vacation. The crowd awed. The next slide was a screenshot of a text message from Sanaa. Confused murmurs filled the room. Samir's face drained of color. Slide after slide revealed their betrayal. Messages, photos, and even the coffee mug post. Gasps echoed as the final slide appeared. A selfie of Samir and Sanaa at the cafe, captioned, "Caught in the act." Samir stammered, "Amna, Save it," she interrupted, her voice icy. "I think we've all seen enough." She turned to the audience. "Thank you for coming. The party's over." As she walked out, her head held high, she heard Sanaa mutter, "You're unbelievable." "Samir." For the first time in weeks, Amna smiled genuinely. Amna's footsteps echoed in the hallway as she left the venue. The cool night air hit her face, and for the first time in weeks, she felt free. Behind her, chaos erupted in the party hall. She could hear muffled voices, accusations, excuses, and awkward attempts to defuse the situation. Miriam caught up with her outside, her face a mix of shock and admiration. "That was brutal. I loved every second of it." Amna exhaled deeply, her lips curving into a small smile. He deserved worse. The satisfaction of exposing Samir wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her dignity, reminding herself that she deserved better. But as the adrenaline faded, a lingering question surfaced. Was this enough? Samir stood frozen in the center of the room, eyes darting from one shocked face to another. His colleagues whispered amongst themselves, their judgment palpable. Sanaa, on the other hand, was livid. "I can't believe this," she hissed, her voice low but venomous. "You told me you ended things with her." "I was going to," Samir stammered, his voice shaking. This wasn't how I planned. Plan? Sanaa snapped, her glare piercing. You humiliated me, Samir. You humiliated us. Samir's charm, the same charm that had fooled Amna, faltered under the weight of his exposed lies. He tried to follow Sanaa as she stormed out, but a colleague blocked his path. Maybe you should stay and clean up this mess, the colleague said coldly before walking away. Outside, Samir finally caught up with Amna. She was leaning against Miriam's car, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. Amna, he called out, his voice strained. She turned to face him, her calm demeanor unnerving him. Yes. Can we talk? Please, he begged, his tone pleading. Amna raised an eyebrow. Talk? Like the way you talk to Sanaa behind my back? Or the way you lied to my face every day? Samir stepped closer, his hands raised in a defensive gesture. I made a mistake. I know I messed up, but you have to understand. Understand what? Amna interrupted, her voice firm. That you thought I'd never find out? That you could juggle two lives without consequences. Samir sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was confused, okay? Things weren't perfect between us. And I got lost. Amna's eyes flashed with anger. Don't you dare blame this on me. I gave you everything, my time, my trust, my love. And you threw it away for someone you already walked away from once. So, what's your excuse for betraying both of us? Samir opened his mouth, but closed it again, realizing he had none. Miriam stepped in, her voice sharp. You don't get to manipulate her anymore, Samir. She's done with you. Samir's shoulders slumped. Amna, I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Amna let out a bitter laugh. Fix it? You can't. This isn't a mistake you can sweep under the rug. It's over. Samir's pleas fell on deaf ears as Amna walked away, her head held high. For the first time, she felt a sense of closure. She had taken control of the narrative, refused to be a victim, and let Samir's lies crumble under their own weight. As she and Miriam drove off, Amna glanced out the window, watching the city lights blur past. A quiet realization settled over her. She wasn't just walking away from Samir. She was walking toward a future where her happiness wouldn't depend on someone else's loyalty. The following morning, Amna woke to a flood of notifications on her phone. Her carefully orchestrated exposure of Samir had become the talk of their social circle. Messages poured in, some supportive, others nosy, and a few judgmental. Miriam called before Amna could even sip her morning coffee. Your little spectacle is viral, Miriam said, half laughing. People are calling you a genius. Amna sighed. I didn't do it for the drama. I needed him to face the truth. And for everyone else to see him for who he really is. Well, mission accomplished, Miriam replied. Are you okay, though? Amna paused. Was she okay? The anger had simmered down, replaced by a hollow sadness. She had loved Samir deeply, and though she knew leaving him was the right choice, it didn't make the betrayal sting any less. I will be, she said finally. It's just going to take time. Samir, on the other hand, wasn't faring as well. Word of his double life spread quickly through his professional and personal circles. Colleagues distanced themselves, friends stopped returning his calls, and Sanaa had blocked him on every platform. At work, Samir's boss called him in for a meeting. This isn't just about your personal life, Samir, his boss said, his tone stern. It's about trust. If you can't be honest in your relationships, how can we expect integrity in your work? Though Samir wasn't fired, his reputation was tarnished. For someone who thrived on charm and connections, it was a blow he couldn't easily recover from. Anna spent the next few weeks focusing on herself. She started attending yoga classes, something she had always wanted to try but never found time for. She reconnected with old friends, went on long walks, and even picked up painting, a hobby she had abandoned in the early days of her relationship with Samir. Her family, though initially shocked by her revelation, rallied around her. Her mother's words stayed with her. You deserve someone who values you, Amna. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. One evening, as she was organizing her closet, she came across a box of mementos from her relationship with Samir. Photos, concert tickets, and a collection of handwritten notes. For a moment, nostalgia tugged at her heart. But as she sifted through the items, she realized they no longer held the same weight. Amna decided to let them go. She placed the box outside her door for donation, feeling lighter with every step. A month later, while shopping at a local market, Amna ran into Sanaa. The encounter was awkward, both women unsure of how to navigate the moment. Sanaa broke the silence. I didn't know he was still with you, Amna. I swear, I thought he was single. Amna nodded, her expression calm. I believe you. Samir was the liar. Not you. Sanaa hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Neither did you, Amna replied. But it's over now. For both of us. They parted with a tentative sense of closure, each understanding that they had been victims of the same deception. Amna's life slowly returned to normal. Her home, once filled with tension and mistrust, became a sanctuary of peace. She still thought about Samir occasionally, but not with longing. Instead, she felt gratitude for the lessons, for her resilience, and for the strength to walk away. One evening, as she sat on her balcony sipping tea, she realized how much she had grown. She wasn't just surviving the betrayal. She was thriving in its aftermath. Months had passed since the explosive night that unraveled her marriage. For Amna, time became both a healer and a teacher. She learned to enjoy her own company, to rediscover the woman she had been before Samir, and to embrace the unknown future ahead of her. One evening, Miriam convinced her to join a small dinner gathering with mutual friends. Amna hesitated initially. Socializing felt daunting after everything, but Miriam's persistence won out. The gathering was warm and intimate, the kind of environment Amna hadn't experienced in a long time. She laughed freely, shared stories, and for the first time, felt like herself again. Toward the end of the evening, Miriam introduced her to Assad, a soft-spoken architect with an easy smile. His presence was unassuming, but his genuine interest in Amna's thoughts caught her off guard. They spoke for hours, and though there was no immediate spark, Amna left the dinner feeling something she hadn't felt in a while. Hope. A week later, Samir reached out to Amna. His name flashing on her phone brought a wave of emotions: anger, sadness, and a trace of curiosity. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him at a public cafe. Samir looked different, disheveled and weary, as if the weight of his actions had finally caught up with him. Thank you for meeting me, he began, his tone subdued. Amna nodded but remained silent, letting him speak. I've spent the past few months reflecting on everything, he admitted. I hurt you in ways I can't take back, and I don't expect your forgiveness. But I needed to apologize. Amna studied him carefully. His remorse seemed genuine, but she wasn't the same woman who would have been swayed by his words. I appreciate your apology, she said finally. But forgiveness isn't for you, it's for me. I've moved on, Samir. I hope you find a way to move forward, too. Samir nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. You deserved better. I hope you find it. I already have, Amna replied, her voice steady. As she walked away, she felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. The chapter with Samir was officially closed. Over the next few weeks, Amna and Assad began crossing paths more frequently, thanks to Miriam's subtle matchmaking efforts. Their conversations grew deeper, filled with shared dreams, ambitions, and laughter. One evening, as they walked along the city's waterfront, Assad turned to her. You have this incredible strength about you, he said softly. It's inspiring. Amna smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. It took me a while to find it, but thank you. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility of opening her heart again. Not because she needed someone, but because she wanted to share her life with someone who truly valued her. On the anniversary of the day she had exposed Samir, Amna sat on her balcony, journaling her thoughts. She wrote about the pain, the betrayal, and the journey of finding herself again. She wrote about Miriam's unwavering support, the small victories, and the moments of self-doubt she had overcome. Most importantly, she wrote about gratitude. Gratitude for the strength she didn't know she had, for the lessons she had learned, and for the woman she had become. As she closed her journal, she looked out at the city lights. Her past no longer defined her. It had shaped her, but it no longer held her captive. Amna stood, stretched, and smiled. The future was hers to write, and for the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace it.